Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. I landed here yesterday for the first time in Cayman. I've learned to say Cayman, by the way, from Washington, D.C. And in just over 24 hours, if I could describe Cayman in one word, that word would be family. I've never been here, but that's what I feel. In the speakers that spoke today, in the people I've met, I get the sense of family, that there's a sense of family here, that people are working together for the benefit of this island. And so, I hope it's not too much if I presumptuously say that I would like to speak to you as family. Because that's how I feel about healthcare from my work in emergency medicine over the last almost a couple decades now. Now, I don't know if the events company is just that amazing, but I can tell you, it's amazing that the last two speakers went before me, because what I will be speaking to is almost exactly what the last two speakers shared, and how we can achieve what we're speaking about today, which is sustainable healthcare. What I can say is that we can do this together. We can achieve a healthy planet. We can achieve healthy people, a healthy population, a healthy Cayman, a healthy world. I truly believe we can, having seen what I have seen over the last 18 years or so in emergency medicine. But if we want to do that, we're going to have to understand what we mean by wellness. And if we want to do that, we'll have to understand Susan and Susan's story. Susan started having abdominal pain, didn't know what was going on, and eventually she was told that she had Crohn's disease. If you don't know what Crohn's is, it's an inflammatory condition of the small intestine usually. And these inflammatory lesions affect the intestine such that you can't really absorb nutrients. And so eating becomes difficult, nutrition becomes difficult, and it can get really bad. Now, she started doing holistic healthcare, holistic services. Some helped a little bit, some didn't. She didn't know how to navigate it. There's so many options in holistic care. I'm sure Ms. Ebanks, who just spoke, I'm sure in your facility there are going to be I don't know how many different providers of different kinds of modalities. That's a wonderful thing to have. That's an amazing resource to have on this island. The question is, how is the public going to navigate that? How do you choose, okay, I'm going to do yoga? Wait, no, I'm going to do Reiki? Wait, I'm going to do Ayurveda? No, wait, I'm going to do massage? No, I'm just going to see my doctor? How do you choose? Options are great, but the map is necessary. You can have a beautiful territory, but you have to be able to navigate it. And so that's what Susan is trying to figure out. I know there's a way, she says. I know there are people who have healed. There are people who have got better. Sometimes it's pills, sometimes it's surgery, sometimes it's meditation, sometimes it's lifestyle, sometimes it's yoga. You never know which is going to be the one. So I actually told her Jackie's story. Jackie is someone I interviewed a few years ago now. And her story goes something like this. When she was a kid, she started having abdominal pain. And same story, nobody knew what was going on. In fact, she didn't even know it was a problem because she's a kid. She's having pain, it comes, it goes. You don't know what's the standard, right? You're not talking to everybody about this. But soon it was just going from once a week to twice a week. And then it went to 3 times a week. So she started telling her parents, hey, it's not feeling right. I can't eat. It hurts. And once in a while, her parents would stop. They lived on a farm, so they were very busy. So her parents would stop. They would take some time off. They would get together. She would get better slowly. And pretty soon, they're back to the day-to-day events. And then once again, it happens. Now, when this happens over and over, week after week, day after day, you know something's wrong. So they finally went to the doctor. Didn't know what was going on. Eventually, after some time, she became a teenager and says, this cannot be right. So after some more serious evaluations, more, let's say, in-depth, ultimately, they found that she had, in fact, the skip lesions in the intestine that are characteristic of Crohn's disease. Now, when you have inflammation, what do you do? Let's say you have a fire. What do you do? How do you put it out? You tamp it down, right? You deprive it of oxygen. You muffle it. Well, that's generally the approach that we take. And so she got immunosuppressants, from prednisone to others. And she would get symptomatic relief. It works. But it's temporary, because we're not really putting the fire out. We're just kind of smothering it. But what is causing the fire? So ultimately, she started trying other things, started changing her food, started experimenting. Nothing was really kind of working. But she always had in her mind, no, healing is possible. Something's possible. I know I can do it. Years passed like this. The situation got worse. She was on multiple medicines, high doses of immunosuppressants, which have their own side effects. And eventually, she started having so much scarring that she had a bowel obstruction. So that's when your gut is not moving the matter across as it should. And hers was so bad that she actually had to have surgery. So that section of the bowel that was blocked had to be resected, and it was taken out. And so Jackie now has reached wit's end. She's done everything. And no matter what she's doing, it's not working. And she knows the next steps aren't good. So what does she do? She starts looking into holistic care even more. I gotta find something. And in the corner of her mind, she's heard about something really strange that she doesn't want to do because it's really strange and we don't know how it works. But she said, okay, what the heck, I'll do it. I'll try this thing called hypnosis. And some people said, no, Jackie, I tried it, it doesn't work, don't even try that. And she's like, at some point, I have no other choice. I'm just gonna do, as long as it doesn't have any crazy side effects, I'll try it. So she tried it. Long story short, it worked. But the story goes something like this. She saw this therapist, and they had her close her eyes, the usual kind of thing, and started taking her back to her childhood. And she started talking about her childhood. And she said, yeah, we were on a farm, and it was really busy. We were always doing these things. And I felt like I woke up early and I did this and I did that, and just one thing led to another, and we were just always doing that. And then I would get these pains, and then, my family would come together and we'd all stop, and it would get better. And then we'd go back to doing these things and A, B, C, D and the to-do list, and then voila, it's back again. And then Jackie had an insight. Nobody said this to her, but in that deep state, she had an insight. She said, I feel like this was my body's way of telling me to rest. Now, if somebody else had told awake Jackie that, probably would not have been met with a smile. Right? But she had this own insight. And she did something in that session that I think was amazing when she told me the story. She said thank you to her body. She said, thank you. I see what's been happening. Because you've been getting inflamed, we all stopped. We took some time. We got back to what matters. and then I forgot. But I get the message now. Thank you. But I don't need you to do this for me anymore. Powerful insight, powerful words. After that, she has not had a symptom again. As of a couple years ago when I last spoke to her. And she, of course, allows me to share her story. Now, she went to see her gastroenterologist, and he said, I wouldn't believe it if I weren't your gastroenterologist. Her scans were clean, no inflammation. Now, her intestine didn't magically grow back. The part that was cut out didn't magically grow back. But the skip lesions went away. The inflammation went away. And she eats what she wants now. She doesn't eat terribly, but she eats what she likes to eat. Susan wants that. I can't tell her exactly what to do because for any one of us, we never know what it's going to be that might unlock something. But what I can tell her is there are a range of options, and there should be a way to help you navigate this. In fact, there is. I trained in emergency medicine starting in 2007. 2007 to 2011 was my residency in Philadelphia. And in my intern year, my first year, maybe 2 a.m. on a Monday or Tuesday night, which were always the busiest nights, strokes, heart attacks, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, sepsis, respiratory distress. You know hurricanes better than me, but that's our version of hurricane in emergency medicine. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, there's a point in emergency medicine where you're like, it can't be worse than this. A nurse ran in holding a baby. And it's never good when you see that. And we did what we do. We converged in the resuscitation bay, and we took care of this baby. And in this hurricane, in this storm that was swirling on this crazy Tuesday night at 2 a.m., in the middle of this resuscitation, I felt like somebody pressed pause. Because it went from an absolute storm to absolute stillness, for me, in my mind. Something happened. And in that pause, and in that perfect stillness, and in the depths of that silence, these words were emblazoned in my mind. We don't know what health is. We don't know what health is. That's not a criticism. It's an invitation. You see, we're so used to talking about health. We're so used to talking about healthcare. We're so used to talking about public health. We're so used to talking about holistic health. And so many companies now have health as the second word, something health. Most hospital systems in the US, something health. All appropriately so. But what is health? Health comes from the root heal, which comes from the root whole. So health begins with seeing the whole you. This is not philosophy. I'll say it again. Health begins with seeing the whole you. So in that emergency department that day in probably July-ish, August-ish of 2007. I realized that something I had sensed for a while was true. And that if we really want health, if we truly want health, we will have to start by seeing the human being completely, by modeling the human being completely. Because healthcare is all about models. The first central keystone model being our model of human anatomy, around which entire sectors, why sectors, entire civilizations are built around our model of how we see you. I'm going to tell you something you already know. Modern medicine works. Susan knows modern medicine works. Sure, can we do things better? Of course. But there's no debating this. Modern medicine works. I'll tell you something else you already know. Public health works. Clean water works. The good food works. Moving your body works. Susan also knows that public health works. The third one, depending on where you stand, may or may not agree, but I'll say holistic care works. By the way, that word holistic and that word health are awfully closely related. They're close siblings, almost twins, but they sound very different to us. We don't talk about holistic care systems, we talk about healthcare systems, but we're saying the same thing with different words. Getting a massage works. You generally feel better. Meditation, maybe not if you're starting out, yeah, it can be tough. Maybe you feel a little worse because I can't even meditate. But generally, once we get the hang of it, meditation works. It helps to calm the mind. Yoga works. So the problem is not that these things don't work. The results are there. The studies are there. I picked a few, but you could pick hundreds. If done the right way in the right setting, these work. More than 10 years ago, we probably never thought we could reverse heart disease with lifestyle. It was considered to be magic, if that. Now we know. Lifestyle changes, specifically nutrition changes, can not only arrest heart disease, it can reverse heart disease. And if you want sustainable, think about that. That's something we do at home. So there's evidence for clinical results. There's evidence for cost savings. We know all of this works. So why doesn't Susan know how to navigate this? What's the missing link? Where are we going wrong? Where have we not figured something out? We have all of these modalities. Everybody's knowing about them more and more. The wellness market is trillions of dollars and only growing. People will only know more and more and more about these. Why does Susan feel lost? Why can't she navigate this? There is a tremendous opportunity here. Not just a market opportunity, but a tremendous opportunity for sustainable healing that scales. For democratizing healing, which is what's near and dear to my heart, because I see the effects of not democratizing healing in the emergency department. I submit to you then what we're talking about when we talk about wellness is actually the union of all of these sectors. Modern medicine, public health, holistic care, and self-care, which often get left out. Now, Susan can talk about modern medicine to doctors, She can talk about holistic care to holistic care practitioners, but these don't talk well to each other. In fact, she's kind of scared to talk to her doctor about holistic care because at best they'll say, okay, go ahead. But at worst, it can be a lot worse than that because it's a different language. Who loses? Susan definitely loses because she doesn't feel comfortable exploring her options and she doesn't have the guidance of her doctor to do that. But the market also loses. Businesses lose. Hospital systems lose. Clinics lose because that's a tremendous opportunity to fulfill your mission and to reach a tremendous new market at the same time. Halbert Dunn, Dr. Dunn, was one of the first people to talk about wellness many, many decades ago, and he wrote that high-level wellness is an integrated method of functioning oriented towards maximizing the potential. Integrated method of functioning is the key. That's what we're talking about. That's what this is. An integration of all of these. But it's not just integrative medicine. Integrative medicine is when you have all these modalities side by side: Reiki, yoga, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, meditation, mindfulness, massage, and so on. I can name 7, 8, or 9, but there are dozens easily. And they sit side by side. But then, which one do you choose? What do you do next? How do you choose one over the other? And who is the expert? Who is the one expert that knows about all of these and it's going to translate them? They don't exist. We have an interoperability problem that is undiagnosed. The answer is not simply offering many healthcare and wellness services. The next leap beyond integrative medicine, both for the market and to truly achieve sustainable healthcare that heals and scales across the planet. The next leap is interoperability among these sectors. And we'll talk more about that. WHO says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. This could be a good use of wellness as well, because wellness says the same thing, that it's all of these different parts brought together is wellness. That's what's unique about wellness. When Susan tries to navigate this is what she gets. Okay, it's treatment, it's medicine, it's community, it's evidence, it's integrative, it's holistic, it's lifestyle, it's nutrition, it's pretty much everything, right? The strength of wellness today, as wellness exists today, the strength of wellness is the weakness of wellness. Because the strength of wellness is almost everybody's going to say, yeah, wellness works. And what exactly is wellness? Everything from A to Z. Yeah, it works. But it becomes this nebulous, vague, huge yes, without an arrow, without a directionality, without a navigation, without a map. And so I truly believe this is a time to talk about interoperability in a new way. Now, this is a big buzzword in the US, interoperability. Everybody's talking about it in healthcare reform. We have to have interoperability. But the way we're defining it is small. The problem is big, but the solution we're defining is not big enough. Because we're talking about it mostly in terms of data and electronic medical records. Critical, important. I love to see that EKG of the patient who just came in with chest pain, and I'm looking at it and I see, well, it looks a little bit off, but I would love to see a baseline. Okay, great. I can connect with the other health system. I can see it. Okay, I say, you know what? I think you're okay. This looks pretty similar. Let's do a few tests and we'll have some more answers in a couple hours. I love that interoperability. That's not going to solve Susan's problem, though. When we talk about interoperability in healthcare, we're usually talking about these 4 aspects: foundational, structural, semantic, and organizational. Foundational means you get the message across. I can get the EKG from the other place, just a basic foundation. Structural means you get the structure of the data as well. So think about Lego blocks. You not only get the whole thing, but you can see how they're constructed. You get the structure as well. Semantic interoperability is you get the meaning. You get the meaning of the data. You can extract meaning. You can see patterns. And the biggest one is organizational. So this is when policies align across systems. But the truth is, none of this helps Susan. None of this helps her find what Jackie found. And so I think we need to talk about a new kind of interoperability that I believe will define true health systems forever. I think there will come a time when we realize there was a time in healthcare before interoperability and after. And that kind of interoperability is sectoral interoperability. It's the translation of knowledge that is due today. It's the translation of knowledge across cultures, across millennia, across healing systems, and in its current form today, across healthcare and wellness. More broadly defined, as we saw, healthcare, wellness, holistic care, public health, self-care, all of these. That interoperability, that knowledge translation, that architecture of meaning and knowledge exists not today. That's what Susan is waiting for. Dare I say, in some way, that's what everyone in this room is waiting for. Because when we see that, we will have the ability to navigate and mine answers that we do not see today. And so when we're talking about sectoral interoperability across healthcare, public health, holistic care, self-care, I invite you to consider that this is what we're talking about when we're talking about wellness, when we're talking about the future of healthcare. I believe that the team that figures this out wins the game. I believe the team that figures this out blows everyone out of the water. For the simple reason that almost every patient I have lights up when I talk about what they can do at home that helps them. Oh, really, Dr. Kumar? Oh, wow, yeah. You know what? I always thought that. Before that, they're like, okay, what do my lab results show? Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'll go, okay, I'll follow up with primary care. Oh, I can reverse? Oh, I can do that? It's like two different people. The other day, I had a guy with a shoulder dislocation. And I said, look, I know it hurts. Just take it easy, breathe with me. We can do this a couple ways. One, we can do sedation. It'll probably take a while. We'll give you the medicine. You'll be out. We'll get the shoulder back in. We'll get the x-ray. But it might take a couple hours because it's not just like that. We got to watch your airway. We got to make sure you come back after the sedation. But you look a little bit lax in your shoulder. That's actually a good sign in this case because we might be able to put it in easier. I can give you some IV pain medication and I can walk you through this. And if you can stay relaxed, you could be home in 30 minutes. And he's like, what do you mean, doc? How do you do that? What are we going to do? I said, look, the key to putting a shoulder back in is you staying relaxed. The natural tendency is to fight because you want to protect. And if you fight, you tense. And if you tense, the shoulder won't move. And then you and I are in a wrestling match, which never works. And that's why we have to sedate. However, if you can relax, if we can trust each other, if you know I'm not going to make any sudden movements, if you know I'm going to talk you through the whole thing and let you know everything that's happening, and you relax, then we can unlock the top of the humerus and let it slip out, and it'll just automatically click back in. Could be 10 seconds once we start. And he goes, oh, doc, you mean that's like mind-body stuff, man. He was so excited. You never imagine a guy in such horrific pain with a shoulder dislocation will be so excited. I think he was like in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And sure enough, that's just what happened. He was out of the ER in about 30 minutes. This lights people up. And if we can find a way to offer a map through the world of health and wellness, the public wins the game, and whoever the business is or the organization is that figures it out wins the game. Because everybody is looking for this. Most people, let me get a show of hands, okay? How many people believe there's something to wellness? All right, I would say majority of people. So that's my market analysis. The majority of people believe there's something to wellness. But it's not the case that the majority of people are comfortable talking to their doctors about it. So there goes your market. If they're doing it secretly, or they're not doing it as much as they would, because they don't feel like the knowledge translation is there, even though it works. Now, I'm not saying everything works. I'm not saying go out and take every supplement that every supplement company is. That's not what I'm saying. But there's good data behind a lot of it, and it works. And I think the key to sustainability and scaling is solving sectoral interoperability. Like I said, I believe there will be a before and after, and once this happens, there'll be no looking back. Now, how do you do this? How do you solve for interoperability? Well, I'm going to take you back to what may be a good time or what may be a nightmare for you, which is your math class, way back. I did this with my son a few years ago. Remember when you had to add fractions, or even worse, subtract fractions? Right? You couldn't do it unless what? Unless they had the same denominator. Right? So you can't add, so 3/4 plus 1/2, you can't just add the 3 and the 1 on top, because the denominators are different. So you had to find the common denominator first. But once you did that, once you did the knowledge translation, once you made each fraction interoperable with each other, you could work with them. Similarly, what we have to do is find out what is the common denominator. Let's say, what is the greatest common denominator among these sectors? And focus on that and deliver on that. I just thought of interoperability as the ability to switch gears. And I just thought of a story. I think I'll have time, so I'll tell it quickly. I had a patient who was depressed, and the chief complaint in the EMR was suicidal. And I went to see him, and I said, hey, I'm Dr. Kumar, tell me what's going on, how can I help? And I had my scribe with me just a few years ago. And he said, Doc, man, it's so hard at home. I'm always criticized. Nobody understands what I'm going through. And he's got tears starting to stream. And about 30 seconds into this, you can feel the intensity of this person's despair. And so I just decided in my mind that unless I'm called for an emergency, I'm not going to say anything, because it is very evident to me that he has so much to share. So I stayed quiet, and he talked, and he talked, and he talked. And probably 6 or 7 minutes later, he looked at me, he goes, thanks, Doc. I hadn't said a word. I hadn't made a diagnosis. I hadn't used a model of anatomy. Interoperability should give us the ability to switch gears, to change our approach, to deliver whatever is needed in that moment. But it has to be evidence-based. It has to be science-based. And we must have that underlying knowledge architecture in place to do that. So getting back to common denominators, The American College of Lifestyle Medicine, fantastic organization. They stress the importance of lifestyle. They have, I don't know how many, 4, 5, 6 pillars, all great, all wonderful, all pillars of sustainable healthcare. You might have heard of the blue zones, some of the areas around the world where people live the longest. Another model, another common denominator, because it's all lifestyle factors, right? We all do them. Integrative medicine has so many things that we can do. Prevention, right? What helps prevent disease? Sleep, rest, etc. I often talk about nutrition, movement, connection, and rest, but you can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pillars. It all works. It's all true. But here's the thing about that. These are all things you can do. And the truth of the matter is, telling somebody what to do, it doesn't always work. Nothing here is new. It's all been under the sun forever. So telling someone to do by itself doesn't work. What we need is a mirror that shows people who they are and lets them join at the point that they meet this picture. Other factors that could be common denominators, the Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion, the social determinants of health, so on and so forth. Again, all work. They're all good. They're all great policies. But again, simply telling people what to do doesn't get it done. At least it hasn't so far. We need another approach. We need another approach for Susan, who wants to communicate with her healthcare team and her holistic practitioner and wants them to be able to understand each other without going through another decade of training. If you look at the sectors in our society, like housing, transportation, energy, finance, it's all designed around you. Housing is for you, obviously, for you to house yourself. Transportation is so you can move. Energy and finance are ways to get resources so you can live the life you want. Can you imagine if any one of these says, well, we're going to see you incompletely. So transportation, we're just going to transport the top half of your body. It sounds ludicrous. Sounds ludicrous, right? You need the whole you, whole, health, whole. Housing says, well, we'll house your left side, but not your right side. Crazy, of course not. And yet, in healthcare, arguably the most important sector, arguably, we have a tendency to see you only as a physical thing. How many people in this room have experienced love? Oh, come on. I'm trying to get everybody to raise their hands. All right, for those of you who haven't raised your hands, how many have experienced fear? All right, we got everybody else. Well, guess what? When I did my dissection in cadaver lab way back, I dissected. I never found love. I swear I looked very closely. We opened up the chambers of the heart. I looked inside the walls of the heart. I said, no, professor, there's got to be something wrong with this body. Because what I know is that the two most important forces in a human being's life are love and fear. And you're telling me that's not in our model of a human being? You're telling me we're going to diagnose and treat without accounting for the two most powerful forces in a human being's life? My friends, dare I say my family, we are more than physical things. And until we have a model of health and wellness that not only recognizes this, but does something about it to complete the model, we will not have interoperability at the sectoral level. And Susan will still be looking for her solution. We are not just physical things. There's a mental aspect of us, thoughts and feelings, that many holistic systems engage with. There's an aspect to us that we could say is energy. Arguably, the most important diagnostic tool in all of medicine, arguably, is the electrocardiogram, the EKG. In seconds, you can know if somebody's having a heart attack. Guess what that taps into? It measures the electrical aspect of the electromagnetic field. So you can be sure that electromagnetic fields are an aspect of what we are. We don't think about it that way because we have a philosophical bias in medicine that says physical first. To say physical first isn't science, it's philosophy. To say physical is important, absolutely. But to say that's first or primary or only, that's not science, that's philosophy. And so I submit to you that all of these and more are aspects of our anatomy. That we are physical beings, we are mental beings, we have energy, we are energetic beings. Is that anatomy? This is a professor, I believe, of cultural history at Harvard, Professor Kuriyama. He wrote, "In Huasu, we missed the muscular detail of Italian man because muscularity was a peculiarly Western preoccupation. And the tracks and points of acupuncture entirely escaped," here's the key phrase, "the West's anatomical vision of reality." If we want sustainable healthcare, please know this. We think of anatomy as something that's over there. There's the cadaver, dissect it, and we know that's anatomy. We don't realize that it's not what's over there, it's how we see what's over there. Because those two images, I wouldn't blame you if you thought they were different species. I can guarantee you it was Homo sapiens that drew both of them. They both had two eyes, they both had a brain, they both had senses of perception, and they drew two radically different images of you. And guess what? It is the image of you and the model of you that we use for diagnosis. So if we use an incomplete model, guess what kind of diagnosis we get? If we use an incomplete model, guess what kind of treatment we prescribe? It can be fantastic. Look, I think we do great things in emergency medicine, but I also know we do incomplete things. And I know that I need my fellow colleagues across sectors, across healing systems, to solve that problem. Information is you. Jackie never thought about her early childhood. That's information. Today we have psychedelics, improving mental health in so many places. People are having out-of-body experiences, spiritual experiences. These are all different kinds of information. That is an aspect of who we are. If we are philosophically agnostic and open, it is an aspect of who we are that is entirely consistent with science. And there are many, many studies to support that all of these are critical in how we address people. Consciousness, self-awareness, spirituality, the deepest aspect of who we are. Because it is in this field of awareness that we know about information, that we know about energy, that we know about thoughts and feelings, that we know about even the physical stuff. So if we want to help Susan, let's give her a complete map. Imagine, I was just thinking about Cersei Way, 55 Cersei Way. I was just thinking about this as you were speaking, Ms. Ebanks. Imagine a person comes in and they have an AI that looks at what they're there for and just breaks it down by these 5 bodies, these 5 aspects of who they are. And every service is organized by this. And so they know, oh, okay, I want to act on this aspect of myself or this aspect of myself. And they go home and so many of these things are available to them in the same way. There's a sustainability part, there's the scaling part. Because many of these interventions are no cost to low cost, and they're what you do in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your living room. And when you need the help, of course, you come to the wellness center, you come to the hospital system, and everybody's running this more complete model of who you are. And who's got the master map? You do. For the first time in history, the public can have the master map to healing. And it ain't complex. It's just saying, hey, we see you as much more than a physical thing. These are all the aspects of you that we recognize. And by the way, our health system is organized by that too. Each aspect of who we are, whether it's physical, mental, energy, whatever it is, corresponds to different sectors. Physical is primarily modern medicine. Mental gets into holistic care. When you get into energy, information, consciousness, it's holistic care and self-care. But the bigger point here is that image of wellness, that Venn diagram-like image, that is solved when you see a human being completely. That's all anybody's asking for. One of the biggest complaints in healthcare is my doctor doesn't see me. They see me, but they don't see me. They see me for my appointment, but they don't see me. That's not a criticism of the doctor. The doctor's training is in physical medicine, and we are fantastic at that. And as human beings, of course, through rapport, we can empathize with people. But our training is this. Others' training is that. Let's put that all together. This is what wellness really means. And I believe this is the new primary care. I truly believe that primary care soon will be defined by holistic medicine and holistic care that is truly interoperable. Is there evidence for this? Yes, there are many whole person care models, but none of them have completely defined the human being and brought all the science to all of these layers in a translatable way. But we are getting there. It is inevitable. You can see the momentum. It's the next thing. Integrative medicine, which is really popular now, soon is going to be the standard. It's not going to be the leading edge anymore. Within a couple of years, it's going to be the standard to just tread water. The next stage is going to be truly interoperable knowledge and care. This is what healthcare used to look like. This is what it's going to look like very soon. And by the way, Wellness Boulevard there, that picture, that's one of the biggest hospital systems in the DC area. They know about wellness. They have to cater to wellness. The market demands it. And it's just the beginning. So yes, you are at the center of the entire society, and you should be at the center of this. The whole you. True health. Whole care. This is a model we came up with. 5 sides to it, 5 aspects of you: physical, mental, energetic, informational, consciousness. It's a little tricky to navigate, but here I can make a good use of my pointer here. So physical, atoms, cells, organs, your checkups, your surgeries, your medications, your vaccines, all good stuff. It all works. Mental, mind, emotions, thoughts, conversations with people, mindfulness, meditation. It works too. Energy, meridians, chakras, emotional freedom tapping has shown great results in people with PTSD that have tried therapy for years, that sometimes within weeks or days get great results from EFT. Informational, dreams, regression therapy, hypnosis, ancestral beliefs, and now ketamine, trips, whatever it might be. Guided ways to do this. I'm not saying go wild. My point is consciousness, identity, spirituality. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my meaning? Why are we all in this room together right now? My friends, this is you. This is me. The question is, how much of it are we willing to see? And if we truly want sustainable health care, we will have to see this at one point or the other. We will have to acknowledge this at one point or the other. We may call it different things. You may not use the same words I do, but we will have to see this. I'm at time 0, so I'm going to skip ahead and simply say we are one health system. We are one planet. We are one species among many. And I'll say what I said at the beginning. We can do this together. We can do this together with truly interoperable sectoral care. And then we will realize that wellness and holistic care is, in fact, the true primary care. Thank you for your time. The last thing I'll quickly say, I'd appreciate your feedback on this because this means so much to me. I'm here because of what I see in the emergency department. I believe we can have a society that is truly based on healing, and we can scale it across the planet, and I will not stop until I see that. So if this inspires you, please scan the QR code. It's just feedback for me in terms of how I can do this better. Furthermore, if this inspires you and you want to do something about it, email me, ak@numocore.com. If you do the QR code, you'll get the first 7 chapters or so of my book for free. Thank you for your time. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here, Kayman, Honorable Minister, and everyone here.